countryside looks peaceful. Until you stay overnight, small towns don't make big news. That's why so many things happen there, without anyone ever finding out. You can drive for hours through the countryside, seeing nothing but hills, fences, old barns leaning like tired men, and think to yourself, this is peace. The kind of place people run away to when the city noise eats too deep. The kind of place where it's always golden hour and the air smells like pine or horses or rain-hardened dirt. But if you've ever stayed in places like this, really stayed, through the midnight quiet and the kind of darkness that feels too thick to be natural, you know that peace isn't the whole story. There's something about rural silence, the way it waits, the way the woods press in after sundown, like they're listening, like they're holding their breath. If you grew up anywhere rural, you've probably experienced it, that eerie stillness that makes your hair stand on end. Maybe you've camped in the woods and heard twigs snapping when no one was there. Maybe you've seen lights flicker through the trees with no source, no sound. Maybe it was just the wind, but maybe it wasn't. Out there, cell service dies, roads vanish into gravel and brush, and neighbors can be 5 miles away. If something does go wrong, good luck running for help. You'd be lucky if someone even hears your last scream. These 3 stories aren't Reddit fiction. They're not just campfire tales or filler for Tuesday night creep channels. They're real, submitted by people who lived to tell them. Barely. Each of them takes place far from city lights, where forgotten structures decay beneath moss and memory, and where the dark doesn't feel like an absence of light, but a presence. So if you've ever looked out across an empty field and felt like something was watching you, or you've caught yourself holding your breath just a second too long on a country road at night, you're not alone. Let me know in the comments if anything like this has ever happened where you live. Something weird, something that didn't make sense, something that never fully left you. Our first story comes from a man who thought he'd spend a peaceful weekend by a creek, right before something crawled out of him. The thing by the creek. I went back out to the property in late October. It had been years, 15 at least, since I walked those woods, smelled the pine-heavy air, or heard that soft bubbling sound of the creek running just out of sight. My grandparents lived on that land when I was a kid, miles from the nearest town, tucked deep along the edge of a national forest most maps didn't even bother naming. After they died, everything sat empty. Time took the house long before nature did. Rot, termites, storms. The place earned its silence. I'm not sure what called me back. Nostalgia, maybe. That boredom that only shows up late at night when your life feels too scripted. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Just packed up my car, grabbed my gear, and drove hours into the middle of rural nowhere. It was close to dusk when I reached the tree line. The old driveway had vanished beneath brambles and moss. I had to leave the car half a mile up the dirt road. It took me longer than it should have to find the clearing again. The house, half collapsed, choked by ivy. Shards of roof shingling peeked through what looked like claws of green bone. The porch had caved in. The windows were gone. I didn't go inside. Instead, I set up camp near the edge of the creek. That same bend where I'd caught frogs as a kid. The water still had that amber tint to it, like it absorbed the rust straight from the soil. And it was quiet, not peaceful quiet, the kind of quiet you know, like the moment after a gunshot, or when the power cuts, and everything mechanical dies at once. Above it, faintly, so faint I almost missed them, were carved letters, a L, my initials. Now, that chilled me, because I did used to carve my initials into every damn tree I could find as a kid with my pocket knife, but not there. Never that tree. Besides, next to those letters was a symbol I definitely didn't make. An oval with 5 points poking out in asymmetrical patterns, like an eye that had grown teeth. Later that night, the rustling started. At first I thought it was wind. Then I realized the branches weren't moving, just the underbrush. Something small, or something far away. But then it circled the tent. One rustled to the left. Pause. Then one to the right. Closer, I froze there, zipped inside my sleeping bag, holding my breath like it might help. The fire had gone out hours ago. There were no crickets, no frogs, not even the occasional hoot of an owl. Just crackle, crunch, pause. Something was walking around the tent in circles. Slow, deliberate steps. You can always tell when whatever's in the woods knows you're there. It's the way it moves. Not random, not curious, intentional. And I swear on everything holy, I heard it breathe. Low, gurgled, wet. Like someone with a crushed windpipe trying to inhale through soup. I didn't look outside that night. I didn't sleep either. By the time color started bleeding into the sky and the mist rolled in off the creek, the sounds had stopped. I stepped outside and checked the campsite. Nothing looked disturbed until I turned around. One of the stone stacks had fallen, and in its place lay my pocket knife. Open, blade sunk into the dirt. Clean. Thing is, I didn't pack my pocket knife. That morning, I started to break down camp. I told myself I'd spent enough time reminiscing, that I'd go visit the nearest ranger station and report a possible cougar stalking the area. Nothing supernatural, just a predator, a coincidence. And anyway, I was fine. Then I heard someone call my name. From the trees, behind the tent, just one word. Alex. Soft, like someone testing the sound of it. A woman's voice. Well, not quite. Something trying to sound like a woman. I froze. The voice came again. Closer. Alex. This time, it was wrong. Too breathy. Like lips too wide, voice box just slightly out of sync with the vowels. It didn't sound like it came from a throat. More like it echoed off wet reeds. Then I heard something else. My voice, coming from deeper in the woods, mimicking the woman's tone back. Alex. Now there were two voices. One behind me, one in front, playing call and response, mocking. I grabbed my bag and ran. I didn't stop to break anything down. Didn't even take the tent. I just ran toward the overgrown road, slapping branches out of my way, barely looking where I was going. The sun hadn't fully risen yet. Mist clung to the low branches, and every 15 steps I thought I saw something in that fog, taller than a man, distorted, dragging limbs that didn't fit. I made it to where my car should have been. It was gone. No tire tracks, just the indentations where it had sat. The trail had been disturbed. Mud kicked in patterns that didn't match boot prints or paws. Something had dragged the car away. That broke me. I dropped to my knees, breath heaving, hands shaking too violently to even reach for my lighter. I screamed, cursed, probably wept. I'm not proud of it. And then I saw it. My backpack. Not the one I had just dropped. My old backpack. From when I was 10, 11. The same camouflage pattern, the frayed shoulder strap, hanging from a low tree limb just 20 feet off the road. It was open. Inside, something glinted. I got close enough to see what it was. My house key. Not my grandparents' place. The apartment I live in now. Hours away. States away. I didn't touch it. I turned and ran back into the forest like a lunatic, hoping to stumble across a longer trailhead, maybe a neighboring property or cell signal. I ran until my legs gave out. Eventually, sometime later that morning, I flagged someone down on a Forest Service ATV. The guy thought I was on drugs. Probably still does. Can't say I blame him. When we went back to the site, no tent, no stacked stones, no backpack. He found tire tracks farther down the trail though. Said maybe I forgot where I parked. When I described the tree with claw marks, he said it had been struck by lightning and fell years ago. I knew better, but I shut my mouth. A week after I got back home, still scared, still sleeping with the lights on, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo. Me, sleeping in my tent, taken from outside during the night. Flashless, but crystal clear. Sharp enough to see my breath in the cold air. My wristwatch on the ground. Even the zipper pulled slightly open like someone had checked inside. On the back, someone had written 3 letters. AL. It didn't follow me home. I triple-checked, asked neighbors to keep watch, installed cameras. Nothing. But sometimes I dream about the creek again. And in those dreams, I'm the one crawling out of the water. Story 2. Whistle in the wheat field. The farmhouse was supposed to be our fresh start. After 6 years in a cramped apartment overlooking traffic and alley dumpsters, my husband and I were ready for quiet. We found the listing at midnight one night after too much wine and spiraling rent. A white 2-story porch swing, acres of open wheat, not corn, which felt important at the time, and unwatched land in every direction. It was old, yeah, but beautiful. Rural Kansas. The air felt different out there, sharp but clean. Everything smelled like sun-warmed dirt and dry grass. We didn't even meet the owner, just showed up, signed the sale papers through the realtor, and moved in 2 weeks later. People in the nearby town kept their distance. Friendly on the surface, but wary. Tight smiles. No small talk. Our neighbor, if you could call him that since he lived 2 miles down the road, dropped off some fresh eggs on our second day, and before leaving, offhandedly said, "Don't walk the field. Not at night. And don't let your lights face east." I laughed. I thought he was being cute in a weird, witchy way. My husband thought he was just messing with us. We didn't ask questions. Looking back, I wish we had. The first night I heard the whistle, I thought it was the wind. It wasn't even really a whistle at first, more like someone pushing air through closed lips. Uneven, off-key, faint enough to mistake for creaking wood or settling beams. But it was coming from the wheat, from the middle of the field. It was October, chilly at night, dry, no reason for someone to be out there, but I didn't wake my husband, and the sound stopped after about 5 minutes, so I wrote it off. The next night, I heard it again. This time, 2 notes repeated, higher pitch, then a pause, then again, almost musical. We joked that maybe it was a bird, or some rusted weather vane twisting in the wind. But by the 4th day, it started happening exactly at 9:17 p.m. I know the time because I'd been texting my sister when I first noticed the pattern, and she joked that maybe it was my rural ringtone. I laughed. Until it became my ringtone. That's when I stopped laughing. The next evening, just after 9, the whistle came again. Identical to my phone ring. Same 2 rising tones. Short, sharp, pause. Repeat. I showed my husband. He said he didn't hear it. He couldn't hear it at all. We stood side by side on the porch, staring into a sea of golden wheat under a colorless night sky. And I asked, "You seriously don't hear that?" He shook his head. I recorded it. My phone picked it up, just barely. A garbled, windy clip with the notes buried under static. But when I played it back with headphones later, there were 2 sets of whistles. The obvious one, and another farther out. Delayed. Faint, but responding. One would call, the other would answer. I tried to brush it off, until the night I whistled back. I don't know why I did it. Call it idiotic curiosity. I just wanted to see what would happen if I repeated the same 2 notes back in the field's direction. I stood on that porch and whistled. 5 seconds later, the field answered. Same tones, but this time closer, sharper, like it had moved forward 10 feet in a blink. I didn't whistle again. Every night after that, it returned. Closer, louder, rhythmic, always from a different spot in the field, and always just on the edge of what I could see. I started using a flashlight. Every time I heard it, I'd point the beam out toward the source. But the second the light touched the wheat, the whistling stopped. Not like it drifted off or faded. Stopped. Cold. The silence after was worse than the sound. That's when it started knocking. It began one night just after I'd shut off the flashlight. I turned to go back inside, and I heard 3 soft thuds on our rear kitchen. Knuckles. That unmistakable knock, knock, knock. I ran around back to the flashlight already on. No footsteps in the dirt. No figure. Just the silent sway. Like it was hiding. I didn't sleep. weird sounds. She went quiet immediately, turned and told me, "That house shouldn't have been sold. We don't build too close to the fields, dear. Better to let them keep their space." I asked who they were. She didn't respond, just rang me up and spoke to the wheat noodle display like I wasn't there. After that, even more people avoided me, looked through me. The following night, the whistle happened at 9:07 p.m., then 9:02, then 8:46. It was coming earlier and earlier each day, almost like it was creeping along the hours, the way the moon creeps across the sky. And it stopped pretending to stay in just one part of the field. One night, I heard it from the front of the house, then out back just minutes later. It circled, and somehow, my husband still never heard it. One night, I stood on the porch with him as the sound came again, closer than ever, and I watched his face stay blank. I was shaking, questioning myself. Am I making this up? Hallucinating? But then I hit record again, and this time, the recording showed something else. Not just the whistling, but a voice under the notes. Whispered, layered. When I slowed the clip down, I heard my own voice whisper, "Come out now." That wasn't in my memory. That wasn't something I said. Then came the final night. I was alone downstairs. My husband had gone to bed early with a migraine. The whistle began sharply at 8:41 p.m. Just 3 notes now, slower, heavier. A lullaby stuck in a loop. I shone the flashlight again. Nothing. The wheat didn't move, but the whistling stopped, and the back door handle jiggled, like someone trying it, like someone already on the porch. I didn't even think. I turned the knob and flung the door open. No one. Just blackness, wind. But I checked my security camera the next morning. The porch view. Night vision caught me opening the door, and in the distance, between the wheat stalks, was something standing upright, far out near the center of the field, barely visible over the tips. Its eyes glowed dull green for one frame of footage. I uploaded the clip to Reddit. I needed help. I needed someone else to hear it, to believe it. I posted the audio, the video. I begged for advice. And just before disabling comments, I wrote one last update. It's still up if you know where to look. It says, "The whistling's inside the house now." I left the front door open. I had to. He's sleeping upstairs and it can't get him if it's following me instead. To this day, no one's heard from me again. Story 3. Caller from the grain silo. We found the silo by accident. Cody and I were bored out of our minds, like most teenagers stuck between nowhere and cornfields. It was the middle of June, hot in that heavy, dust-clogging way where you can feel the air piling up in the corners, like the whole town's waiting for something to break. We did what we always did when the boredom got loud. We grabbed our bikes and rode out past the fence line, where the old farm roads roll through the hills like cracked ribs. We weren't looking for trouble, just something we hadn't ruined yet. The silo stood alone in the middle of a fenced-off field, half swallowed by weeds and rust. No active farm, no machinery. Just that pale silver cylinder sticking up between sun-sick dying crops like a tombstone. The fence was barely standing. Chain links sagged. No trespassing sign was more holes than metal. We hopped it anyway. The base of the silo was sealed with rusted sheet metal and welded shut in some places, but someone had already bent a panel open. Inside was nothing but dust, old boards, and that strange, sweet rot smell places get when they've been forgotten for too long. And then, somehow, we heard ringing. I almost didn't believe it. That distinct bell chime, metallic and wrong within all that quiet. It echoed up through the walls, bouncing metallic beneath our feet. There was a rotary phone sitting on a metal folding chair across the silo, perfectly centered beneath a rusted-out vent shaft. An honest-to-God landline, yellowed with age, hand set off the receiver like someone had just used it, and it rang again. 3 times. Then silence. Cody reached for it before I could stop him. "Don't," I said, even though I couldn't explain why. He grinned that shitty thrill-seeker grin and picked up the phone anyway. "Hello?" he asked, then made a weird face. I asked what it said. He shook his head slowly. I don't think it said anything." Then he dropped the receiver. Just like that. He let it dangle off the cord, swinging. We biked back in silence. I told myself maybe it was one of those weird art installations or a prank. Cody didn't talk the whole way home. Just rode ahead, hunched tight over the handlebars like he was trying to outride his own thoughts. I didn't hear from him the next day, or the day after. When I showed up at his house, his mom said he'd been really forgetful lately. That he asked what day it was 4 times that morning. That he forgot the battery in his inhaler, even though he's never once gone anywhere without it. I found him in his room, staring at the wall. Said he'd been thinking about that phone. "I think it asked me something," he said. "Like what?" He squinted. "I don't know. My mouth said yes before I thought about it." That freaked me out. But what could I do? Tell a doctor my friend picked up a cursed phone inside a grain silo? He wasn't hallucinating. He wasn't sick. A week later, he didn't know it was his birthday. His mom baked him a cake. He cut a piece, then looked confused when we told him it was for him. "Are you sure?" he asked. He didn't remember what high school he went to. He said his room looked wrong. He forgot my name twice. I stopped pushing. Instead, I started poking around, asking questions, visiting the county library for old land records, old maps. Not just for that property, but others. You'd be surprised how many grain silos dot the Midwest. Sometimes within spitting distance of abandoned lots or schools or churches. Places cleared out by tornadoes or foreclosure, yet the silos still stand. I even wrote to a local paranormal forum, anonymous of course. Someone messaged me back after a week. They told me they'd found 5 silos in Kansas that had rotary phones hidden inside. One person claimed they picked up the receiver once, years ago, and the voice knew their middle name, knew what hospital they were born in, then asked, "What do you want to forget the most?" That line chilled me. I never told anyone what Cody had said, but the message ended with, "Don't answer when it calls back." And it will I had nightmares the next 3 nights. Cody didn't answer my texts after that. Then, one morning, I checked his social media. Mutual friends said he moved away. His mom wouldn't answer the door, so I went back out alone, back to the silo. This time, I brought bolt cutters and a hammer. I tore the phone off the chair, yanked the wires out. The line wasn't connected to anything. No junction box, just a frayed cord running up the wall and disappearing into nowhere. And yet, the phone rang, loud, directly in my hands. 3 times. No power, no connection. Still, it rang. So I answered. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to understand. Maybe deep down, I hoped if I played along, I could make this whole thing end. I held the receiver up to my ear. Silence. Then, slowly, like someone waking up on the other end, I heard static give way to breathing. Not human breathing. Too slow. Too heavy. Then a small voice, my voice, said, "Elias," my full name. Not the shortened version people usually call me. And then came the question, "What do you want to forget the most?" It wasn't said like an offer. It felt like inevitability. Like something just waiting for me to pick a door. I didn't answer. Instead, I hung up. Smashed the handset with the hammer until the plastic split. But the broken phone began ringing again in pieces, no longer needing a cradle, no longer needing a line. Just shrill, gasping loops of sound like it was laughing. I ran. I haven't been back since. But I think I've started forgetting things now. Not like Cody, not all at once, but I'll blank when someone says my mom's birthday. I'll forget the way my dog used to bark. I pulled up my search history the other night and didn't recognize half the places I'd visited. I'm recording this now because I can feel whatever it is creeping closer. Not crawling, not stalking, just bleeding in. And the worst Sometimes I replay the voicemail from that first call, and my voice. It doesn't sound like me anymore. It's stretched, slowed, pleading. If anyone recognizes this voice, please remind me who I am. Story 4. Outro, CTA. What was the scariest? So, which story got to you the most? Was it the thing circling the tent down by the creek? The voice hiding in the wheat field, calling through whistle and knock? Or was it the phone that shouldn't have rung, but did anyway? Let me know in the comments, story 1, 2, or 3, and tell me why. I want to know what you'd do in those situations. If you'd run, fight, or answer the call. Have you ever had something weird happen to you in the countryside? That cold, pricking on the back of your neck kind of sensation, like someone's watching from the trees? Drop your experience in the comments. You might see it featured in a future video. And hey, don't get too comfortable. Just because we leave the open fields behind doesn't mean it gets safer. Next time, we're going into the city. And if you think all the haunting happens in the woods, you've clearly never been inside a locked elevator that smells like burnt plastic and knows your name. Oh, and before you go, some people say the caller from the silo was also spotted watching from the wheat field. Sleep tight.